Hi developers, in my earlier video we discussed about HTTP client in Angular. That's a service provided by HTTP client module to perform HTTP operations like get, post, put, delete to communicate with the backend APIs. Okay. Now in this video we will discuss HTTP request and HTTP response. So these are the classes in Angular HTTP client module that provides a way to handle HTTP requests and responses with the detailed control over headers, status codes and other metadata. So how to create an HTTP request? So the HTTP request object, it is used to configure the HTTP request with the method get, post, put, URL and other optional parameters like headers, body. We can pass it in request. So how to send the request? This is the method HTTP client.request is the method that sends the HTTP request object and returns an observable that emits events including HTTP response. So once we got the response, how to handle that? So the HTTP response object provides the access to the status, headers and the body of the response. So event.status, event.headers, event.body. So it contains the response headers, event.headers and event.status. It contains the HTTP status code like 200 for the success, and event.body, it is the actual data returned by the server. So let's go to the user component. Now we will do it using the HTTP request and HTTP response. So let's comment this code. Okay. So now what we need to do? So let's create a HTTP request. We can create an HTTP request and we can utilize it using HTTP response. So this is the URL and let's create an HTTP create an HTTP request object. Request object. Okay. Const request is equals to new HTTP request. So it will be imported automatically from Angular/common/HTTP. So here write method as get and here we will pass URL, API URL. Okay. So we have created an HTTP request object. So now an HTTP request object is created with the method as get and the URL is this API URL. Okay. So now what we need to do? We need to send the request using the HTTP client. Send the request using HTTP client. How we send it? This dot HTTP dot request. Here we will pass this headers. Okay. Dot subscribe. So this is the instance of HTTP request which we have created. Okay. Dot subscribe. Next event. So now what we need to do? We need to check if the event is an HTTP response. Check if the event is an HTTP response. Okay. How we check it? If event instance of HTTP response. Okay, so now HTTP response, it is automatically imported. Okay, instance of will become together. Okay, so if it is true, if event is instance of HTTP response, then print the HTTP status plus event dot status. Okay, so this is how I explained earlier. So the HTTP response object provides access to the status, headers, and body of the response. So using event.status, we can fetch the status code. Using event.headers, we can get the response headers. Event.body, the actual data. Okay. So here we will get the log the status code. Status code. Okay. Here we will log the response headers. Response headers. Event.headers. Okay. Log the response headers. Okay. So now we need to assign the response body to the users array. This dot users is equals to event, or firstly what we need to do, we need to check like if we need to ensure the response body is an array before assigning it. Okay, so how we do it? Firstly we need to check if array dot is array, event dot body, okay, this dot users equals to event dot body. So what we have done, we have assigned the response body to the users array. Assign the body, assign the response body to users array. Only when if the event.body is an array. Okay, else what we need to do, if the body is not in array, we need to console the error unexpected format, response format. Okay, so we are accepting the response only in the array. This dot users. Okay, event.body. We need to write event. Okay, so after this what we will do, we will console the fetch users. Okay, so what we have done, so here if it will check if the event.body is an array, it will check using array.isArray. If event.body is an array, then it will go and assign the event.body to the users array. It means it will assign the response body to the users array. Okay, so now what we need to do, so here HTTP request and response, these are imported from Angular common HTTP to handle the request and response. Then we have created an HTTP request here. Okay, so it is created with the method get and the URL, and we have used HTTP dot request. Okay, so instead of directly using HTTP dot get here in the earlier video, instead of directly using HTTP dot get, we have used the request method to handle the HTTP request. Here we have used the request method to handle the HTTP request. So then we have checked for the HTTP response. Okay, so here the next callback, what it is doing, it will check if the event is an instance of HTTP response, okay, before accessing the properties. So it is checking if the event is an HTTP response. Only then it will assign the request body here. Okay. And in case of handle any error, it will handle the errors. Okay. So now let's check it. Let's go to the UI. Okay, let's run it again. Terminate it. npm run start. This HTML file will remain as it is. And firstly check what it is there in this. Let's go to this URL. It is containing the list of users and we are fetching only name in the UI. Here we are fetching only name of the list from the list of the users. So it is building the project. So it's done. Let's check what's the, okay, so let's go to URL. So as we can see, the names are printed. We have got the users list successfully. So this is how we can implement HTTP request and HTTP response.